Are you in the market for a used C8 Corvette? If you are, there's two huge warranty items related to the dual clutch transmission on the Corvette that could potentially affect you big time. Let's talk about it. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the vlog. Thanks for pressing play. As you heard there in the beginning, today we're going to be talking all about two gigantic warranty issues that could potentially affect you when buying a used C8 Corvette. We've talked a lot about the dual clutch transmission warranty and the maintenance on this channel in the past, but today, Joe and I, we've had a conversation about this, and there's something big that no one seems to really be talking about here, and that is how these warranty items affect the used C8 Corvette market. As you guys know, at this point, the C8 Corvette's been out for going on 7 model years. So there's a lot of used ones sitting on lots, ranging all the way from 2020 all the way up to 2026 at this point. But the important part of these cars is the maintenance. Because if you're not following the dual clutch transmission maintenance plan from GM, the warranty on these cars can be voided. What do I mean by that? Well, there's two major items. The first one, of course, is the transmission filter, which GM sent out a letter talking about. You have to change it at 7,500 miles, not 6,000, not 8,500, 7,500 miles. They're very specific about that. It has to be done at 7,500. If you do it early, that's fine, but you also have to do it again at 7,500 miles. That by itself could potentially void your warranty. So if you're looking at a 2021 or newer C8 Corvette sitting on a lot that's used, and it has, we'll say, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 miles on it, and you get a really good price on it, you're going to want to verify that that transmission filter has been changed. Because if it wasn't changed and there's no documentation of it ever being done, you're buying a car that now has a completely voided warranty on at least the transmission, if not the powertrain in general. So if you're trying to grab a 2021 for a really good price, make sure the transmission filter has been changed. But on top of that, Joe and I were having a discussion about the fact that the fluid could possibly affect this too, because if it's over 45,000 miles, which it's going to be tough to find a C8 with that many miles on it, but you're also at 3 years. So that fluid needs to be changed 45,000 miles or 3 years. So if you're looking at a 2021 and it hasn't had its fluid changed, guess what? That warranty could potentially be voided. So Joe has some examples for us on this. I'm going to kick it over to him and let him tell you a little bit of story about how we came to this knowledge. Now, this isn't necessarily any kind of hidden tips and tricks here. This is just something that no one seems to really be talking about. You have to watch buying used C8 Corvettes at this point because of these two items. Joe, tell us a little bit about how we came to this conclusion.
Justin, a buddy of mine down in Florida who is part of our Corvette club I belong to was looking exactly as you described for a 21, 22, or 23 C8. And it became apparent as he and I were digging, and of course you and I have talked, and the punchline is exactly what you highlighted. There's two criteria, but everyone's talking about the 7,500 mile one. But I think what's going a bit unnoticed is the fact that there's over 100,000 produced 21, 22, and 23s, most of which, especially the 21 and 22s, and even a lot of the 23s because of when they were purchased, have already lapsed with the 3-year, 36,000 mile bumper to bumper. Therefore, if you buy one of these and you cannot validate on the Carfax or through a dealer service network that the transmission fluid was ever changed in the first 3 years, the fluid, at least once, then the 5-year 60,000 can absolutely be voided. And why is that? Because of several reasons. One, owners received a letter in October of 2024 talking about the filter, but the very last bullet says that it must be changed in the first 3 years. As a follow-up to that, there are also dealer bulletins that have been sent to dealers also stating such, yet none of the dealers that we were talking to seemed to be aware of this and kept saying, no, there's no language about that. You're talking about the 7,500 mile issue, to which we then showed them the letter and some of the other documents that the dealers apparently had received, but for whatever reason, more than one dealer was not that familiar with. Imagine that issue at a CarMax or other dealers who don't necessarily even handle only Corvettes. And this is becoming a big issue because of the timing that we're now talking about. So as Justin said, if you're interested in one of these vehicles, absolutely make sure, and if it's not on the Carfax and the dealers aren't sure, no matter who the dealer might be, run that VIN through the service department of any GM dealership, and they should be able to show or demonstrate that there was a transmission fluid change. If it's not there, then I would run, because if you have a problem during those next 2 years and you think you're covered, by definition under those letters, GM can absolutely say you did not follow the service schedule and therefore you are not covered.
The letter from GM flat out says that your warranty could be voided if you do not do the 7,500 mile filter change. It also heavily implies that your warranty could be voided if you're not changing that transmission fluid every 3 years or every 45,000 miles as well. Now, Joe actually put this question into Gemini, which is like ChatGPT, and asked basically, can GM void the warranty for not changing the fluid? And he got back this. It says, technically, yes. Skipping the 3-year transmission fluid change can give GM grounds to deny a warranty claim on your transmission. Now, the C8 Corvette in general, we're not talking about just the Stingray, just the Z06, or just the E-Ray. Any C8 Corvette, you could buy a C8 Corvette E-Ray that is a 2025 that has been used, that maybe has over 45,000 miles on it, or a 2024 that should have had its filter, the transmission filter changed. These are two gigantic items that are going to void your warranty if you don't verify they were done. And after talking to Joe about this and his friend that was looking for a car down in Florida, there was a ton of dealerships who didn't know. Not only did they not know, but they were actually kind of pushing that it didn't matter, that all that really mattered was the filter change, not the fluid change. These are two gigantic items, guys. Like I'm saying, if you want to get a car and feel comfortable with your purchase, both of these items should have been done depending on the date of the car, of course. So if you're buying used, used 2026, you're probably pretty safe. Just make sure it's not over 7,500 miles, because if it is, you got to verify that transmission filter was done. But if you're buying a car that's 3 years old or older, make sure that fluid was also changed, and the transmission filter, even if it only has 2,200 miles on it. And if it's over 3 years old, that fluid needs to have been changed, or else they can deny your warranty. So yeah, Joe and I were having a conversation about this on the phone the other day, and we both were like, you know what, why is no one talking about this? This is a big deal with used cars. These things need to be documented. And if it was done by GM, it will be documented. If it wasn't done by GM, it's potential that the previous owner could have documented it, but GM or whoever dealership you're buying it from is going to have to provide that information to you in order to protect your warranty.
Justin, just one more thing I would add in conclusion is it was pretty staggering how many different vehicles we were looking at different GM dealerships, whereby they kept trying to state that we were incorrect and that is not part of the warranty issue at all. It was really only around the 7,500 mile trans filter change. In fact, they showed us documentation as such, and it was dated April of 2024. And lo and behold, it only did talk about that, to which we then shared the letter that customers got. And it was very clear in that letter, which was October of 24, which precedes or postcedes, if you will, the April letter. And the very last bullet, as mentioned, clearly states that you have to change the transmission fluid at least once during the first 3 years of ownership, or you could lose your warranty. And remember, that letter is all about the DCT warranty. It wasn't about any other topic. And those were the two areas it focused on. So be careful. And if the owner did it themselves, make sure you've got documentation. But in most cases, they will never share that with you at a dealership, because on a trade-in, all the prior owner's records are not permitted to be shared under privacy law. So therefore, the only proof you will have is through the service department's records of that VIN. Absent that, you really won't have a case to defend. And Justin, another interesting moment was when the dealer said, well, even if all of that is true, the fact that the car we're talking about with you, or your friend, as it were, is a certified pre-owned, which means it comes with a 12,000 or 1 year bumper-to-bumper warranty. So don't worry about it, until I zoomed down to the bottom exclusion area, and it said failure to follow the maintenance can void this warranty. So we went round and round and ended up in the exact same place, to which then Mark, my buddy, and I said for him, this isn't going to work, and we left.
Yeah, so honestly, we talked about this on the phone and we kind of came to the same conclusion. The C7 Corvette, the C6 Corvette, they didn't have items like this. There was no do this by this mileage or your warranty is voided kind of thing. So this is something kind of new to the C8 Corvette or to the Corvette in general. And it's interesting because a lot of you guys are going to ask out there, well, Justin, how can GM do this? And honestly, they're kind of doing it even outside of the transmission thing with the purchase now of a ZR1. In the past, the Z06 and the E-Ray both qualified for the 6-month, you had to hold on to it, you can't sell it kind of thing. Now the ZR1 is 1 year. And when you sign that document at the dealership actually puts all of the burden into your hands, the owner. It says basically it's up to you to communicate to the new buyer that his warranty is now void if he buys this car from you. It takes all of the liability or the burden of having to deal with any of this off of GM's hands and puts it right onto yours as the buyer or the seller in this case. So with that said, it's almost the same kind of thing with the transmission filter and fluid. We got the letter in the mail as the owner of the car. If a person who isn't familiar with the C8 Corvette comes along and says, I want to buy that car secondhand, it's up to me as the owner to tell that person, hey, this car is not or has had the transmission filter done or has not had it done. You're going to need to do it by 7,500 miles or the fluid by 3 years. That's up to me. So GM has completely washed their hands of this. And as Joe has said in a couple of his examples, the dealership doesn't seem to even know that this could possibly be an issue. So that's really it for the video, guys. I wanted to get this out there and let you guys know these are two really major points to buying a used C8 Corvette. And I want to put a lot of emphasis on the fact they're major. You have to check these things out. And if you can't verify it, it's not a great idea to buy that car. If you're planning on keeping it for any length of time, or if you don't want to have any potential out-of-pocket costs, you may be entering into something you're going to regret later. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it. Smash the thumbs up button if you like the content. Subscribe if you haven't yet. And as always, stay obsessed.